Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves.
Well, I have a question, Kaylani. A deep existential question that I was thinking of this morning that I wanted to float to you that we can explore. And that is, why don't bathroom stall walls go all the way to the floor?
Yes, I too have contemplated this, so I'm glad that you're bringing it up. It is a quandary. Here's the thing. Other countries that are less developed than us, how have they figured out the bathroom stall situation? And we have gaps.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't be able to see the person in the stall. I shouldn't be able to identify you.
The most awkward moment, one of the most awkward moments of my life is walking past a bathroom stall and making eye contact with somebody between the crack. And then, so this morning, the reason that crossed my mind is because I was obviously in a stall. But okay, my first thought was, maybe if somebody's having a heart attack, the firefighters or whatever can climb underneath. But I'm like, no, then create a key or something that they could just open it with. It's so awkward, and you could see people's shoes. And
so it's funny. There was I've listened to a discussion of other people on a podcast talking about this.
Really?
Yes, but I was eating it up because lived in South Africa, and there's stalls. There's no gap between the walls like there are here. Like, we've got a half-inch gap everywhere. Like, that isn't something we could have engineered and fixed.
In your world, it's all stalls. I have urinals. It's all stalls.
I have a thoughts on urinals too. We're just getting started. But it's so weird and strange, and I hate it. One time there was a child that some parent couldn't keep them under control. They crawled into my stall underneath while I was going to the bathroom. Whoa, what? What's happening? This child just popped into the stall.
That is horrifying.
It was horrifying. And they're like, where are you? And I'm like, he's in here. Terrible. And urinals are weird to me too, but I don't have to use them. But when I was in Amsterdam, I think this was several years ago. They have it was a game, and so everyone is leaving, and the streets are full of just people. The streets are blocked off, and hordes of people are leaving. They have these outdoor urinals where you are literally just peeing. It's just
like a trough, like a bathtub?
I don't even know how to describe it. It's the plastic, obviously, and it's broken into quadrants. If you had a circle and it was broken into fours.
It's like a pie?
Yes.
Okay.
And so there's a wall divider from the other people, but you're still out. They're just out.
So you're mixing your pee with other people's pee in a pee pie.
In a pea pie in public. So people are out, you're just outside. This pea pie situation
Public pea pie.
is not the public pea pie. It is not blocked off. It's just on the corner.
Okay, that's disgusting, but the alliteration is very satisfying. I'm not gonna lie.
But then, how is a woman supposed to pee? What?
Okay, I'm gonna just give you something that I heard. It's a really unfortunate name of the idea.
Is it? Yes, it's like a woman pee funnel.
It's called a cooter canoe.
No, is that what it's called?
And so you can use your imagination what it looks like. But
I heard a different name for one, but now I can't remember what it was called. I would literally try it. I would do it.
It's really popular for camping, is what I've been told.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a canoe. And it sort of channels.
It's like a little luge.
Yeah, exactly. And it channels your pee. Because women have the unfortunate task that you can't just projectile your pee.
No, it's more difficult to aim.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point too. I don't feel like we have enough public toilets in America either. I have a lot of complaints about the toilet system.
Well, and then when they do have public toilets, then they say they're only for customers only. You know?
There's just, I don't know. I mean, the next step is that we just all have to start wearing adult diapers. So
I'm here for it. I'm down.
That's my only solution.
So anyway, This is there's really no way to segue.
I have one last.
Okay,
quick.
okay.
Politicians, I'd like you to put this on the docket. Fix the toilet situation in America. If others agree, I would really like you to like, comment, and subscribe, because this is an issue affecting all of us. Here at Delightfully Dysfunctional, we will not stop until the toilet stalls have been made more private. Are we right, James?
We're going to rally for this.
Yes.
We're going to go door to door.
We're going to make shirts.
Yeah. Pea pie. Wait, no, that's not. We don't want pea pies.
We don't want that. We'll revisit this. Okay.
Another P word that we're trying to revisit today. See, this is going to be a good segue now. Is perfectionism.
Perfectionism.
It's a little more appropriate to what our whole vision is.
The topic, yeah.
But I mean, a bathroom wall stall, a stall wall going all the way to the floor would be perfect.
Yeah, I think we should just talk about dysfunctional things at the beginning of every episode. Random dysfunctional things.
Okay.
Like, that was a good one. This is going to be the new flow.
Excellent.
The flow.
Well played. So, perfectionism. I guess I could try my best to define what I think is perfectionism, but then I'm sitting across from somebody who probably has the definition on your mind.
Yeah, so perfectionism, this is someone else's definition, Julia Cameron's, but I really liked it. It was put into words better than I can. Perfectionism is not a quest for the best. It is the pursuit of the worst in ourselves, the part that tells us nothing will do or ever be good enough, that we should try harder. So it's this idea that, like, we're never up to par. So a lot of people who are actually quite high functioning and like high achievers carry a lot of high anxiety that they themselves then feel like they can't share or be honest about, because it would crack the facade that they've created of being perfect or successful or achieving X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So there's different types of, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome and perfectionism, I think they just go hand in hand. That idea, again, of like, I'm going to be found out, or we're just putting too much pressure on ourselves. So let's go over some of the main ones and even like just sit with like if any of them fit with you. Would you call yourself a perfectionist?
No. Well, okay, because I would have. I definitely used to be. Although I'm more like OCD with like things that I create. Like they have to be perfect. But then I am perfectly okay with everyone knowing that I'm like, all my bad stuff. But I would say that the biggest struggle I had, I would more call it a performing. Like the whole, but I think it's very similar to what you're describing, because like the whole facade and like imposter syndrome. I remember I would project, like social media is really terrible about this, but I would project how I wanted people to perceive me. And if somebody gave me feedback, like unsolicited or whatever, that, oh yeah, like you're doing really well in this part of life, I'd be like, okay, great. I fooled them. Like, they fell for it. But little did they know, I'm hiding all these awful things, And so then,
this is definitely something that has affected me at different times in life. Most recently, just I've talked about this a little bit in one of the first episodes, but just the idea of being a therapist who still might struggle, like that feels like a weird thing to say out loud, but I think it's really honest. And the more that I hear from other therapists, the same, that like, hey, we're just humans on this journey, but this is what I've figured out and this is what's improving. And like, I love the like peeling the curtain back and just seeing the authenticity more than I like pretending for others to have my shit together all the time, because that's exhausting. Yeah. And I think that other people appreciate it more too, because it gives permission for others to do the same, is my hope. That's what my desire is for everything we're doing here. Yeah. I have two thoughts to respond to what you just said. So it reminded me of Brene Brown has this quote. I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember exactly word for word, but she says basically, there's nothing that connects two people more than the phrase "me too."
You know, so
yes.
like if it's one thing to sit to like try to project that you have your shit together, but it's a whole different, like, walls come down when you can say, oh, I feel you, like, I understand your heart, you know, like, I've been there,
I see you, I see that.
And then people like, oh my gosh, then let me tell you everything, you know. But and
that just actually, that speaks, you had another point, can I?
Yeah, no, go for it.
Okay, sorry. Okay. That just speaks to like the perfectionism in our society too, you know, that just simply uttering a flaw or uttering a hardship creates like that level of intimacy with someone, really.
Vulnerability.
We're so starved for it because everyone's so busy putting up like their perfect family vacation and whatnot. And I'm at the same time, because I'm going to dissect this once more so we're not black and white. At the same time, you should post whatever the fuck you want on social media. Like, I'm posting my family pictures. I'm keeping private what I want to keep private. Those are your decisions. This is more about how you consume social media. That, like, be aware that everyone's life is going on behind the scenes. This is a curated version.
Yeah.
And this is more about you being aware of what you are digesting and how you're interpreting it.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I keep saying this, but I'm so committed to being like brutally vulnerable, because I want people to basically stop projecting a false facade when, like, imagine how cool it'd be is if you just knew, if nobody had secrets. It'll never happen, but if nobody ever kept secrets, how much peace and joy would exist in the world? Because it's like, oh, I know the worst thing you've done, you know, and you know the worst thing I've done. We have nothing to hide from each other, so you can just take me as I am, you know. And so that's a very freeing thought. So anyway,
and when we don't do that, when we like hold on to these things that we feel shameful for, that's when a lot of maladaptive behaviors come up, which just means unhealthy behaviors that have consequences we might not realize in the moment, but are much more long lasting. So good points.
Okay, so my other thought was you had mentioned that, you know, you're a therapist and there's sometimes, what did you say, you're sometimes self-conscious that
like being like, I'm also a human who has like life circumstances that can create a lot of stress, or my own healing that can feel like quicksand sometimes. And so there's also the practice of doing my own work while showing up for others, which is totally doable and possible. To me, what I'm working on breaking down, and that's again part of why I'm here doing this, is if that does rub someone the wrong way, if it rubs someone the wrong way, that I'm someone who also has to manage my anxiety at times, if that rubs someone the wrong way and they feel as though I shouldn't be doing this, if it rubs someone the wrong way that I've been divorced, but yet I do marriage counseling, whatever the issue they have with me, then you're not my cup of tea, and that's okay. There's certainly people I run into and I have the same feeling of like, I'm sure you're wonderful. I don't know that I need more of that in my life. This is for the people who it's resonating with you. Then please stay, join us. I would love that. But I'm not going to be for everybody. And that's all right. That's taken me 34 years to come to that conclusion and to say it in all honesty. But it is. Sometimes people are in your life for a season to teach you something, to gain something. Let them go. Thank them. Thank them.
Well, yeah. So, like, my thought was that have you ever played like Grand Theft Auto? Or you play video games or anything?
I played Tetris.
Okay. Well, sometimes
Snake. Are you familiar with Snake?
Yes, very popular on Nokia phones in the early 2000s. Yeah. But so on like Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto, these big giant games where there's a world to explore. When you first drop into the new season or the new level or whatever, the whole map is black. Until you go to each destination and then it illuminates.
Okay, yeah.
And so when I think of, and so then eventually the more exploring of the world you do, then the whole map is illuminated. So that's how I think of counselors, is that you guys are people, obviously, but you have a more illuminated map. You've journeyed into certain places.
That.
And so like if somebody thinks that you're perfect, no, you're a person. It's just that you might have navigated with somebody else's shame or somebody else's experience, but you also know how to navigate and like where to go and like what where the healing potion is located in this level, and
this is I like this. Let's develop a video game.
Yeah, the counselor.
Yeah, the delightfully dysfunctional counselor.
Video game. It might be boring though. Just go around and hear people.
How would we? I know. Yeah, that might not entice many people.
Or we could make
I find it exciting. This is my kind of video game.
We could make a swampland level that is shame.
Yeah, the shame swamp.
Yeah, but you can't live there.
Yeah, don't want to live there.
Yeah, just journey through. But anyway,
I love it.
So yeah, that's how I view it.
I like that, and I think, I mean, this is my ethos. I can't. It's not that I can live obviously every client experience, but I do think that I've had a life thus far, that's given me some really interesting experiences and allows me to relate to a lot of people.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's just like I'm going to be able to guide my clients better through whatever they're going through if I'm walking the walk and talking the talk, if I have integrity in my actions, if I'm going to the scary places, if I'm paying attention to my inner world. So there's also like this really strong belief in me of continuing that and paying attention to when, there's times when you don't want to, and being curious about it.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what makes me a good counselor. Like, I'm walking the walk. If I'm asking you to do something that's hard, I know it's hard.
Yeah.
I know it. I've done it. I did it. I get it, but do it anyways.
Yeah. And the only way that you could have discovered that was through curious exploration.
Yeah.
Right? To illuminate the map, you have to be curious.
Illuminate the map. I'm loving this. Okay, so I know we like to go off on our tangents, but I love them.
It all fits, though.
It does all fit. So we're going to bring it back to imposter syndrome. I want to describe some different types of imposter syndrome and see how it might fit with you. One is just the perfectionist. We'll keep it simple. This person likes to set unrealistic goals. They may have been described by others as a control freak or a micromanager. Even if they delegate, if it's not done the way that they picture it being done, it might cause like discomfort or like tension. I feel like when I describe this person, we can all probably think of someone we know, or this might be a description that fits personally for some people. Do you feel like you've identified someone in your mind when that's described?
I actually haven't.
Really? Well, so I can totally think of people who fit into this. So the things that I would hope for this person to try and learn or practice would be acknowledge your accomplishments. Don't just disregard them. This is a reminder I do have to have quite often, actually. But like, we can just like roll it up into a ball and toss it away and just focus on like the next thing, almost like a keeping up with the Joneses mentality when it comes to perfectionism or achievement anyways. And so it's really important for this type of person to like make a list of like, what is it that you're proud of? Don't just let that dissolve. Hey, like, know that you did that. And then redefining mistakes is like, you just were learning, you were figuring it out. Like, a lot of these are tied to this idea that there's a finite goal, there's an end goal of getting it right. And then embracing flaws. Like, part of being human is that we're not always going to be perfect. There has to be that wiggle room for just what happens.
Yeah. I've like, the first thought that came to mind was the original moon landing. They said that the Apollo 10 or whatever, I don't know what it was, but whatever it was.
Someone fact check
oh man, I should know this.
I don't know.
But they said that mission was off course 98% of the time. So then there was always constant little corrections all the way to the moon. Now, I have my opinions whether that moon landing actually existed or not. Actually happened, but I'm just kidding. We can cut that out. But yeah, my point is that it's much like navigating the human experience. Like, don't throw away your accomplishments. Like where you are today is a product of of a lot of your choices. So if you find yourself in like, I have a lot to be thankful for, then great. If you find yourself in a place where you have a lot of work to do, then just start making opposite choices.
I think the tricky thing with perfectionists is that they think that they can be who they want to be all the time, no matter what. And that doesn't always work when you have to be around other people.
Okay.
Like, and that's not just the only factor for a perfectionist, but like they hold themselves to such a high standard.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the trickiness for them is in letting go of that idea.
Oh yeah. Okay, so like they're afraid to fail. They're afraid of any failure, and there's shame when there is anything but perfect.
Yeah. I would also say the ego's really at play here, and that's a tough one, but like, the idea of being perfect, there's a power dynamic there too, or like the ego always wants to be right. I guess
because like my mind is going to like, it reminds me a lot of a child of a narcissist. It's like a perfectionist has that anxiety to perform, and if anything other than perfect exists, then they feel like it's going to ruin their life. So then I don't know if that's accurate or not.
That can be the case for a lot of kids that are from dysfunctional homes, that like that's something that they adopt, especially in a home where there's a controlling parent. So it was kind of already bred into them.
Yeah.
Or an inadequate parent, which we talked about a little bit already, where they're inconsistently there, or they're parentified, they're not tuned in all the time. I'll be honest, like I think I was going to be a perfectionist no matter what. I've analyzed this now. I've analyzed my childhood and my life with a fine-tooth comb. So there was this point with my dad. He's in my life right now, but there have been times when he hasn't been. And I mean, I lived in Minnesota, he lived in Washington. So having a relationship was difficult, and he's very introverted.
Okay.
And doesn't like picking up the phone. So that doesn't leave you a lot of opportunities to connect. Anyways, I had reached this point because I was frustrated with the lack of effort, and I felt like I was being the parent putting in way more effort.
Oh yeah.
And my takeaway was, you'll regret this because I'll be so perfect and I'll do so well and I'm going to be so amazing, and you will regret that you missed this.
Oh, yeah.
So I got the straight A's, and I studied abroad, and I got the letters behind my name. I did all the things, and I did all those things unconsciously that it didn't come from that start point, because it wasn't like I was like in my teen and 20s thinking of like gaining my dad's approval or something. I'd kind of gotten over that part, but the perfectionism maintained because it gave me a sense of control.
Yeah.
It gives you a sense of control that I can do this, I can do that. And it can serve you really well when it comes to goal setting.
Yeah.
It can serve you really well when it comes to responsibility.
Yeah.
But there's like it's a double-edged sword. The other end is that you might always feel inadequate. You might constantly be irritable and exhausted, and you might not know how to play nice with others.
Well, and as you're describing that, it actually like hurts my heart to know that came probably from like a broken heart when you were younger, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it compelled you forward to like outwork that pain. And that's great because now you're like very accomplished and you're here today.
Yeah, years of therapy. I'll send my parents the bill someday.
But like, I mean, I can relate because just recently I had this whole experience where I felt like banished and dismissed by a lot of people because like my personal failures. And I finally reached, and I agreed. I felt like I had to agree with them in order to gain their approval back. Because I wanted nothing more than for them to like approve of me again. But then at some point I was like, you know what? I'm amazing, and if you disagree, then fuck you. That was my thought. And then I basically learned to love myself, and then that compelled me forward. But then that also came from like a broken heart, like that compelled me forward. And so then that actually I had a question about perfectionists, like the fear and the anxiety to be perfect, what are they afraid of? That's, you know,
I mean, I think this would be different for the different types of perfectionism. We've only gone through the one, but if I were to kind of give a brain dump on that, I'd say a perfectionist is afraid of failing because that might mean that they're not good enough, they're not lovable, they're not worthy. It might mean that they feel out of control, that they there might be a sense of like letting people down or disappointment, if that's like that people pleasing is a piece of it as well. So it feels very like this is a core belief that feels very, life and death is maybe too strong, but it carries such heavy emotion that the idea of risking it creates anxiety.
What's crazy though is that most of those beliefs are probably just self-talk. Would you say that that's...
Yeah. Well, and that's where we have to be aware of our thoughts and our emotions. So most of what I do in therapy is motivational interviewing to convince people to change and in line with the goals that they want to do even. And then also, how do we have meta emotion and meta communication, meta thought, which means I'm thinking about my thoughts. I'm thinking about my emotions. I'm not just stuck in them, but I'm aware of them. And that, that doesn't come as easily to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I learned that, you know, the most toxic person, the most toxic critic in my world is me. And like, I'll convince myself of so many awful things. And I mean, I feel like everyone does that.
Yeah.
And, but like to actually get control of that. And then there's a phrase called take every thought captive, which I actually hate that phrase because taking a thought captive means to keep it prisoner and hold it. I like to obliterate the thought, like just to get rid of it, you know? So, yeah. And I don't know how, as a perfectionist, like what would you say is a way that a perfectionist can sort of like take control of their mindset and then navigate like out of perfectionism?
So let's keep talking about the different types, because I think it depends on kind of how someone might be fueled towards perfectionism, right? So the next one that we're going to go over is the superwoman or the superman, but basically the idea that like, I can do it all. I'm going to be able to do it all, and I'm going to do it all well. And this person is convinced that they're phonies. Someone's going to find me out. They're going to figure out I'm not doing it all that well. All of these, again, imposter, the whole idea is that you are afraid of being found out for being human, essentially. I mean, like, I'm going to be this robot that can like beep boop, do all the things, complete tasks, done. And that's not part of being human. So there's a very strong inner critic. They may not feel like constructive feedback might not be something they take well because that compromises the idea of being perfect. I wouldn't need feedback. Right? So things that person could do is try to understand that feedback is there to be helpful, to create a list of achievements that they can, again, kind of remember and reflect on, that like, okay, these are the things you're good at, but also here's some areas that you could improve on. Just simply like stating that there's areas that one could improve on. I think that is really important. And then setting guidelines for healthy boundaries. What are the things that you really don't need to do? What have you been doing on autopilot that you could delegate? What have you been doing on autopilot that isn't as important? Yeah,
like your assistant.
Yeah. Oh, I got an assistant. It's life-changing. Oh my gosh. Megan, you're amazing.
Can she do things for me for free?
For free? I don't think so.
I don't really have anything I can think of, but
she's amazing. I don't even know. Love her. Everyone needs a Megan. The next one that I think would be important to go over too is the natural genius. I think that if I'm looking at, I can see myself in some of all of these, but I think that the natural genius and the soloist are some that I probably fall into a bit more. So this is similar to the perfectionist, but they not only want to do things well, they want to do it well the first time.
My kids are that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember, that was a thought I had as a kid too, like not really understanding the stumbles that are required to learn a skill or to master a skill, but they may excel in certain areas really naturally and therefore only gravitate to the things they know they do well and have a lot of fear about attempting anything outside of that skill set. And that kind of it gives them the natural abilities they may have, really gives them a false sense of perfectionism, but it also creates a wall for them to try things that are uncomfortable. So adopting more of a growth mindset, that that's common in all of these. I'm kind of rephrasing it differently, but that idea that like, okay, like learning starts with fumbles. Breaking down a goal and making it a SMART goal. We might have time to go into that today too, but a SMART goal would be, actually you wrote it down for me so I wouldn't forget. What did I tell you to write down earlier, James?
SMART acronym.
Yes.
It's simple, measurable, accountable, realistic, and time sensitive.
Yes. Thank you. There we go. That's a lot of what I do as a therapist as well, is try to break down like tiny goals that aren't too overwhelming for people. And then being aware of that self-talk. Like, what are we really telling ourselves? Our inner critic is a real asshole. Yeah. And if left unchecked, it will keep our lives very small and very fearful. So to take control of that, I love journaling. I think it's a great way to get your unconscious thoughts out there. There's a lot of interactive apps that can help for that too, but you have to allow yourself some reflective time. And we don't have as much of that anymore. I don't give myself as much of that anymore even. Like I'm in my car and I want to listen to a podcast. Yeah. If you're in your car listening now, stay tuned. Don't turn it off. But we do need to find opportunities to reflect. We have so many options for distraction. You have to be intentional about reflective time.
Yeah, nowadays especially.
Yeah. So if you don't, obviously that autopilot is going to be a lot easier to just stay in the grind. Yeah. And then the soloist is very independent to a fault, so they push people away. So they're attempting to prove that they don't need anyone. It might be a real challenge for them to ask for help, so that would be something for them to work on. Yeah. Not seeing that as a weakness, kind of seeing that as being human means that we're social creatures. We need help. We need our village. Paying attention to when we're putting unnecessary pressure on ourselves. So that can happen a lot. That's something that I have to pay attention to. I'm like, okay. And I love using like a number scale, just for simplicity. Like, okay, what level of pressure am I putting on myself for this task? Maybe it's a 10. Realistically, does it need to be at a 10? Is it that important? Yeah. Is this a situation that it's going to affect my actual well-being, my health, or the health of my family? Probably not. Let's knock that down. Like, let's edit how that feels so that it makes sense. And then realizing that support is needed, realizing that's just something that's okay to have, to invite in. And even if it feels uncomfortable, because I think so often in any of these, the attempt to do those tasks is uncomfortable and people are like, I can't do it. I just can't. It's not me. This is who I am. No, keep going. Yeah. Like that part of the phase is that it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, okay, everything you're saying is just, yes, I really have nothing to add, but because one thing I was thinking about is like, as a child who sort of finds themselves, their whole identity is based on where they were encouraged the most. So then I could see how that a child could become a perfectionist in, let's say, a figure skater, for example. They started off, their dad took them ice skating, and they were good. Oh my gosh, my daughter has really great raw talent with figure skating. And then she gets encouraged. Okay. And she felt really good, that return. And so then she practices more, gets better and better and better and better, and then grows up and becomes an Olympic figure skater, and then falls on the international stage. And then her whole life falls apart because of it. But never once during the whole course, that whole process, did she ever love figure skating. It was just, she was encouraged into it. She got so much positive feedback because she just started off naturally good. And I like I mentioned earlier, like singing for me, people would just tell me like in high school, oh, you have a pretty good voice. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, well, I guess I'll go to choir. And I went to choir. Okay, I guess I'll start a band. Started a band. And like it just went on and on and on. And that became like my identity. And I was like, but I really want to be like on Saturday Night Live. that's where my heart is, And so I could see how. And then if you fail when the whole world is watching, they want you to be like the greatest. And then until you're like, okay, I'll deliver that for them as best I can because I'm already here.
But there's always someone greater and there's always a critic. That's why this podcast is me actively like working on my perfectionism. Like I'm asked for help. Here you are. Right? I asked for help. I'm trying to be aware of my self-talk in this process. I'm like there's gonna be critics. Haters gonna hate. Zach gave me like really great feedback just about like, well, the more anyone puts themselves out there, the bigger the shadow they are gonna cast. The more that you are saying like, here I am, here's my ideas, there's going to be people who are going to have a different opinion. And I'm okay with different opinions. Like that's the other thing. Like, great. If you can have a dialogue, I'm here for it. I'd love to listen and understand. I have to sit and listen to understand to different opinions all day. I'm really good at it. Yeah. What I'm not okay with and that I have to like sit with is like, some people are just going to want to be assholes. Yeah. And they're not going to like me. They're not going to like something I say. It's going to rub them the wrong way. And I have to navigate not taking that personally. And I don't know that up until this point I would have been ready, but I'm ready to take that challenge on now. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that vulnerability.
Oh, thank you.
Because that's interesting to hear. Because this whole podcast also in a way is like, we want more followers, more subscribers. And like I'm
simultaneously afraid. I'm fearful, even though I'm like, that's exciting, and I do want that.
Yeah, and we want people to tell us, oh, you guys are so great, and things like that. But it's like, but the whole point of this one is to be vulnerable and just to be ourselves, and just like all the bad, all the good, all the ugly, and make that cool. It's so weird. That's such a weird, like, slippery slope thing to navigate that we're doing. I don't know.
But I like that we're being this candid about it as we're exploring it. Like, I'm not saying I'm definitely, like, I'm going to say the wrong thing. The thought that I want is not going to always be communicated to perfection. James is guaranteeing perfection every episode.
If you think I said something wrong, you're wrong. Yeah, we'll stick with that.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. There's like a catchphrase for another show that I like. It's funny. I'm right, you're wrong. Shut up.
I may be wrong, but you're wronger.
And I just if someone else is willing to bring up an idea, but you're also willing to be as vulnerable in your communication and your processing of it, those are the conversations that I want to have. I don't want, I'm not going to let it bother me if anyone really is just going to spout a blip to share a thought without anything to back it up.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like we are just explorers and we can offer our observations from our exploration. And that's it. And when people come into stuff like this with solutions and final judgments, and final conclusions, it's like, well, no. We don't have all the information yet. So, it's not appropriate to go there. Just, you want to journey along with us? Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings up another point that I have been wanting to make to soothe my perfectionism. And then I'll be done doing my own therapy through the podcast. If we were to fill this whole building with all of the information, all of the studies, everything that has been published on psychology and mental health, we could. Yeah. And it's impossible for anyone to really digest fully all of that. Yeah. in grad school, maybe I got to digest all of the most important pieces that fill this room.
Mm-hmm.
And then in my own exploration, maybe I got to digest and have chosen to learn more that fill all of the hallways in this suite. There are things I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm not here promising that I know it all.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I think feels like I'm at a place where I can feel really good about that. And like, I'm not promising to have all of the answers. I'm just promising that I can be me and I can share thought. And my thoughts are willing and able to change if better information and evidence comes along.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is my experience. These are my thoughts and feelings. Maybe after I sit with new information, I would say something different.
Yeah. Dr. Seuss, you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. And that's it. You know, that's all we can offer.
All right. So we have Lily, who wrote in for some advice. Lily is in her mid-20s, and she says that she has realized that she is a perfectionist.
Okay.
Her Instagram account is carefully curated. Her house is immaculate. She's always been a breadwinner in her relationship, so she's very driven with career.
Okay.
And feels that she's a good friend who's there for her friends, like she's there for others. And yet she finds herself coming out of a very unhealthy relationship where she's with her boyfriend for 5 years, and he recently shared that he'd been cheating that whole time, and even there was some drug use that was on and off in the course of their relationship. So there's a lot of things going on for Lily. Like, we've got the perfectionism there. She says, I feel like a failure. I'm feeling very stalled and dumbfounded. I'm embarrassed and numb. I worked so hard for the things that I have, and now I'm left at square zero. So, Lily, I'm feeling for you. There's a lot of pain that Lily's feeling right now. Oh, gosh. I think that a lot of relationships can have that dynamic of the female tending to be more of the perfectionist while the male is checked out. And then that can lead so much resentment and distance.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a shared goals for how to run a home. And just, I feel like a lot of animosity can build up just from that dynamic.
And then the betrayal that Lily feels if she invested so much and being a perfectionist, like, she probably is self-conscious of, she's probably humiliated. And
right, like, this was a failure that in her mind, like, what could I have controlled for this? Like, failure still happened. Yeah,
but if I can offer one thought to people who are victims of, like, infidelity and being cheated on, is that it was not an assault against you. The infidelity, the betrayal was a product of some deeper thing that existed in your boyfriend. And I know it's impossible to not take it personally, because you think, how could he be so negligent and so blind to my feelings that he would do this thing? And yeah, that's very valid. You're absolutely right. But somewhere there was a process, and I'm speculating in this one, but really, you did your best. You have nothing to regret and be ashamed of. You have nothing to be embarrassed about, because it was this guy's battle. It was his thing, his like addiction or whatever that he just couldn't overcome. And
I loved that. I think that was such an important message for her to hear.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so many people, like, when their significant other does something that is hurtful, they take that as a hit to their self-worth.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, this is just another imperfect human, and like, it's impossible to not hurt someone, and it's impossible to not disappoint people in this life. And that is not me encouraging that we shouldn't feel like crap when it happens, or have any kind of conscience. But again, if we're living in the gray, there's some of this that, like, this is part of the human experience.
Yeah.
But gosh, I think I would want for Lily to not associate the areas of perfectionism with like this incident that happened with the boyfriend, because I think that, you know, maintaining perfectionism is all in this very elaborate ruse to oneself to pretend as if we are inoculated from experiencing their failure in some way, that we have mastered it or escaped that somehow. And so I think letting her know that this is a good opportunity to probably learn about codependency, because I'm curious too about like why she felt the need to go above and beyond in some of these ways while she was with this partner, because I'm thinking that there may have been some red flags prior to learning all of this. And then to really look at her self-worth, like in codependency, self-worth, perfectionism, all these things, I see them being so interconnected, because why would we choose a partner that isn't showing us that they're in the relationship, like being an active part of it? Why would we choose that? Because we don't think we deserve it. Why would we go above and beyond, and I'm going to be the perfectionist in the relationship who's juggling all the things while my partner doesn't? Because we're afraid that someone else might not like be there for us. At least this person is here. At least they're a companion, even if they're dysfunctional. Like
you need them. Like I'm letting you treat me this way because I need somebody, just anyone.
And those are really hard things to navigate out of, that I would definitely recommend something like Al-Anon, or just really diving into resources for codependency. There's a lot of really great books out there, or even just starting with following certain like pages on Instagram or on YouTube, wherever you consume your social media, that give you reminders during the day if you happen to pop on your phone. So those would be some starting points for Lily. I feel like anything more might be overwhelming, but I would just very much echo everything that you said to her. That was good feedback.
I thank you. And another thing is that if you're going to end this relationship, remember that you have to grieve. You are going to go through the grief process, and just be mindful of that. And because there's always that one point, the bargaining stage, where you want to just do anything to get that person back into your life, even if they're the most toxic person.
And I think Lily actually mentioned that, like, she's still wanting so badly, like, I just want a hug from him, and she's not, they're not living together anymore. But that is such a complicated thing, and you were like brushing against that idea that like someone can hurt us so deeply, and yet if they've been our companion for a while, that still is like the attachment that we're craving to have.
An emotional rut that you're used to, so you got to create a new rut. But if you need a hug, Lily, just come on in and we'll give you a hug.
We want to hug you, Lily. We're so sorry.
Virtual hug.
We're so sorry. We're so sorry that you're in a painful place. I think the last piece I want to leave Lily is, you are in a state of uncertainty, but things won't always feel uncertain. It's not always going to feel this painful. It's not always going to feel this raw. Try to lean into the things that you might need for self-care and see where that takes you.
Absolutely. Good advice.
This was fun. I enjoyed all of the topics that we got to cover today. And we're excited to keep being able to provide more, to keep talking. We love to talk.
Awesome. Well, enjoy life. Write in to us, please. Give us any feedback or advice that you have. Things that if there's a story that you'd like to feature, just like Lily did, where you're asking for advice from either of us, we want to give it to you. We'd love to share our thoughts, or we would also be open to someone calling in. It could be an interactive. So thank you so much for joining us for Delightfully Dysfunctional. Enjoy the rest of your week and stay vulnerable. Yes. We'll see you next time.